Over 50 million people in the US were born outside of the US. About 15% of the US population are immigrants. Immigration isn't just about who crosses a border, it's about who builds the future, and when it comes to economics, it's one of the most misunderstood forces shaping our world. So let's break it down. Is immigration good or bad for economic growth? Who benefits and who doesn't? And why is this such a heated debate? Let's start with the big picture. Immigration has historically been one of the strongest drivers of economic growth. In the US, immigrants have made up between 11 to 17% of the population over the last few decades. But what does it mean when it comes to jobs? Immigrants accounted for nearly half of US workforce growth over the past decade. Without immigration, the US labor force would shrink due to aging demographics. And there's a GDP boost here. Studies show that increasing immigration by just 1% of the population can boost GDP by 1 to 2%. That's because immigrants don't just take jobs, they create jobs as well. Immigrants are nearly twice as likely to start businesses compared to native-born citizens. Some of the biggest companies in the world, Google, Tesla, and Pfizer, were founded by immigrants or their children. But before we go on with the data, let's stop for a second, because immigration has benefits, but it also brings challenges. Schools, hospitals, and social services can get overwhelmed, especially in states with high immigration like California and Texas. An influx of low-wage workers can drive down wages for Americans in similar jobs, making it harder for those without college degrees to compete. And then, of course, border security is another major concern for many. Managing illegal immigration is costly and complicated. Housing prices can also rise with increased demand, and even culturally, rapid demographic shifts can sometimes lead to tensions, especially in communities that are struggling to adapt. It's a complex issue with real impacts on everyday life. But hold on, do immigrants take jobs from locals? Because one of the biggest fears about immigration is that it takes away jobs from native-born workers. But what does the data actually say here? Immigrants and native-born workers usually don't compete for the same jobs. Immigrants often take roles that locals don't want. Think agriculture, construction, or caregiving. In fact, a study from the National Bureau of Economic Research found no significant job losses among native workers due to immigration. Instead, immigration helps fill labor gaps. For instance, the US is currently facing a shortage of 3.5 million workers in sectors like healthcare and tech. Immigration helps solve this problem. There's also a concept called the immigration surplus. When immigrants enter the workforce, they increase overall productivity, allowing businesses to expand and create more jobs. Okay, how about the wage debate? Do immigrants drive down pay? Well, this is another common concern, but let's look at the numbers. A study by the Economic Policy Institute found that low-skilled immigration slightly lowers wages for workers without a high school diploma by around 1 to 2%. However, for high-skilled workers, immigration raises wages by increasing productivity and innovation. In cities with high immigration like New York and San Francisco, overall wages tend to be higher because immigrants drive economic activity. So while there are some downward wage pressures at the lowest levels, immigration overall leads to higher earnings and economic expansion. Okay, this next one is interesting because how does immigration keep an economy young? See, aging populations are one of the biggest threats to economic growth. Think about the videos I've made in Japan or go to Italy and you'll see that they're struggling because they don't have enough young workers to support the retirees. In the US, immigrants help counteract that problem. The median age of US immigrants is 31, compared to native-born Americans at 38. Immigrants are more likely to have children, ensuring a steady future workforce. Without immigration, the US could have the same population crisis as Japan with a shrinking workforce and ultimately lower economic output. So notice we're seeing how Japan is declining in the world's biggest economies list. It used to be number 2, then 3, now 4, and a lot of that could be attributed to the fact that they won't accept immigrants to counter the loss in new births and new locals and natives coming into the workforce. Another topic people wonder about is taxes and government benefits. Do immigrants drain public resources? Here's the breakdown. Immigrants pay more in taxes than they receive in benefits. A National Academy of Sciences study found that immigrants contribute $400 billion more in taxes over their lifetime than they take in government benefits. So how do different countries handle immigration? Countries take very different approaches. Let's start with Canada, which uses a point-based system to select high-skilled immigrants. Their approach has helped grow GDP and wages as well. Then there's Germany, which opened its doors to refugees in 2015. Some studies suggest it led to a 3.2% boost in GDP by 2020. And then there's Japan, which has resisted immigration and now faces severe labor shortages and economic stagnation. The lesson here is that countries that embrace immigration tend to grow faster and stronger than those who don't. don't. But so much of this is politics. Immigration is one of the most politically charged issues worldwide. In the US, both parties have different views. Some conservatives argue that immigration leads to cultural and economic strain. Many progressives argue that immigration strengthens the economy and brings innovation. Think about Elon Musk. The reality of all this is the data suggests that immigration does have a net positive for the economy, but policies need to balance security and economic needs as well. What happens if a country stops immigration? Let's play out a scenario for a second. What if a country completely shuts its borders? Labor shortages would increase prices for food, healthcare, and tech. Economic growth would slow because of fewer workers and lower productivity. Social programs like Medicare and Social Security would run out of money even faster, and the US would likely lose its edge in tech and innovation, allowing other countries to take the lead. This is why most economists agree cutting immigration hurts more than it helps. So when we talk about immigration, we are really talking about the future of the economy. The data is clear. Legal controlled immigration fuels growth, fills labor shortages, and keeps economies competitive. This isn't about stealing jobs, it's about building industries, launching businesses, and making countries stronger. Immigration is a tool that countries use to grow their economies, but let me know what you think. Why has this become such a politicized topic? And how should countries be thinking about accepting immigrants into their country to increase their economy? While you're at it, make sure you check out more of my videos like this and don't forget to follow.